This girl got clapped, so she came back as a ghost to take her revenge. Once upon in 1973, we meet Susie Salmon, a little girl with a heart so pure she probably cries when she steps on grass. She's so innocent that she frets over the loneliness of a snow globe penguin, but her dad, Jack, swoops in like a superhero, assuring her that Mr. Penguin is actually chilling in his pint-sized winter paradise. Susie scores a camera from her folks and flash. She's all about that nature paparazzi life, snapping Insta-worthy shots around the hood like a mini Ansel Adams. Susie mentions a girl named Ruth Connors. Some call her weird, but she's really just got that sixth sense thing going on. Susie also shares her family's scariest Netflix originals episode, the day her little bro Buckley inhales a twig like a spaghetti strand and almost kicked the bucket. Susie goes full Fast and Furious in her dad's Mustang, racing to the hospital to save her brother's life. That day, Susie's grandma drops some Buddhist wisdom on her, saying that saving a life practically guarantees you a long one. Fast forward to a shopping mall hangout. While Jack and his son are bonding over a classic game of don't touch the floor, it's lava, duh. Susie spots Ray, her dreamy senior crush. She's so flustered she can't even muster up the courage to say hey. Next up, Susie dishes about her mysterious neighbor, George Harvey. He's a green thumb extraordinaire, and Susie's always snapping pics of his garden. Harvey's also got a thing for dollhouses and tiny furniture, because who doesn't love a good miniature, am I right? One night, Harvey gets all Frankenstein on us and starts working on a project that's less cute and way more creepy. Later that evening, he starts digging a hole in a field, like he's hunting for buried treasure, or hiding something. Meanwhile, Jack and Susie are tackling some serious arts and crafts, building a ship in a bottle. It's clear they've got that father-daughter bond that could put the Gilmore Girls to shame. Jack tells Susie she's like top tier important in his life, and lets her pull the ropes to hoist the tiny ship. The next morning, Susie and her mom have a little spat about developing film for 24 rolls. Cha-ching! But Jack swoops in, suggesting a 1 roll per month plan to keep the peace. Susie and her sis head off to school, where Ray, Mr. Crush-a-lot himself, strikes up a convo with our girl. The ice smolder is about to transform into an innocent smooch when teachers burst in, like they've got some rom-com interruptus radar. Ray hands Susie a letter and asks her to meet him at the mall's gazebo, the ultimate 70s rendezvous spot. So later that day, Susie decides to take the scenic route home through a field because who needs sidewalks, right? As she's strolling along, she accidentally drops a book, and Ray's letter goes rogue, escaping like it's on a mission. As she's chasing the letter like a dog after a frisbee, she bumps into Harvey, who seems like he might be up to something. Harvey tries to make small talk and get this. He says he's created something the whole community will enjoy. Naturally, Susie's curiosity gets the best of her, and she decides to take a peek. Harvey unveils a trapdoor to a bunker, which, to be honest, is the most extra hideout we've ever seen. Harvey's all like, come on in, no adults allowed. Anyway, Susie being young and innocent goes along with it. The bunker is packed with games and toys, and enough candles to make a romantic dinner for 1,000. Harvey starts asking some weird questions, and Susie's spidey senses finally start tingling. She tries to bounce, but Harvey, living up to his creeper status, tries to make her stay. Susie's having none of it. She manages to escape the bunker, running across the field like she's in a dramatic movie scene. Oh wait. Meanwhile, Ruth, the mysterious girl, finds Ray's runaway note as Susie zooms by. Back at the ranch, Susie's parents are low-key freaking out and call the police to report their missing daughter. Jack, being the concerned dad he is, jumps in his car and goes full-on Liam Neeson to find Susie. Meanwhile, Susie ends up in a part of town that's weirder than a hipster cafe. She spots her dad and shouts for him, but all he hears is an echo. Probably because their family plan doesn't cover ghost-to-human communication. A car passes by and Susie's surroundings turn into a grim, Tim Burton-esque version of reality. Plot twist. Susie's actually clapped. Rip in peace. And she's ghosting everyone. Literally. Susie, unaware of her new paranormal status, rushes home hoping to find her family. But her house has gone from cozy to creepy, like it's been redecorated by the Addams family. As she's wandering down the hallway, she spots a light under a door. She opens it to find a white room, Harvey lying in a bathtub, and enough spaghetti juice and dirt to make a Quentin Tarantino movie. She also sees her Lucky Charm bracelet. Major red flag. The towel comes off and surprise, it's Harvey. He's been busy cleaning himself up after making Susie's life a living, well, you get the picture. Freaked out, Susie lets out a scream that could shatter glass, and then vanishes like the end of a Snapchat story. So there's this super intense police search, right? They find Susie's hat out in a field, but there's no sign of Susie herself. However, the bunker nearby had enough spaghetti juice to film a Tarantino movie. Wait, I already did that joke. Oh well, Jack and his wife are basically a waterfall of tears, and Jack goes all Liam Neeson. Oh, there we go again, vowing to find his daughter. Now our bad guy Harvey is busy cleaning up like a teenager before his parents get home from vacation. He scrubs away any evidence of his Susie encounter, and stashes his bloody shoes like they're a rare sneaker collection. When the detectives show up, Harvey channels his inner poker face and denies ever seeing Susie. Meanwhile, Susie finds herself in some trippy alternate world, running through fields of gold like she's auditioning for a Sting music video. She catches a glimpse of her crush, Ray, being all emo on a mountaintop gazebo, and she's like, oh snap, I was supposed to meet him. She takes a deep dive into the water to join him, while Harvey chucks her bracelet in after her, like a terrible party favor. Susie wakes up in a woodsy gazebo. Gazebos are all the rage here, and finally gets to read Ray's love letter. Ah, young love. Can't relate. Later in the forest, Susie meets Holly, who's like a supernatural life coach. Holly tells Susie they're in limbo, which is like the VIP lounge between Earth and Heaven. Back in the real world, Jack, Susie's dad, is having a breakdown and starts smashing bottles like a rock star trashing a hotel room. But he stops just in time to save the one bottle Susie helped build. He cradles it like a precious baby, and in that moment, he notices Susie's presence in the candle flame's reflection, as if she's sending him a spiritual text message. Jack becomes determined to find his daughter, even if he has to Sherlock Holmes his way through the case. In the meantime, Jack's wife visits the detective and hands him a drawing from their youngest son, Buckley. You know, just a casual piece of toddler art to solve a murder case. Back at home, Jack's wife and his mom bicker about Susie's death, like they're in a twisted soap opera. Eventually, Jack's wife leaves him a letter saying she's off to an orchard for some rest and relaxation, and probably apple picking. As time passes, Susie watches Lindsay grow up and snag her first smooch with her boo. Ray's hanging out with Ruth, the peculiar girl next door. Ray ponders about Susie but can't decide if he should let her go or keep her in his heart like that meme song. Meanwhile, Harvey's low-key stalking Lindsay, collecting articles about her like a creepy scrapbooker. He knows Lindsay's got her suspicions about his involvement in Susie's death, so he starts scheming his next devious trap. 2 years after Susie's untimely demise, Jack develops the last roll of film. Yep, people still do that. While checking out the photos, he spots Harvey and has an aha moment, wondering if this dude's the killer. Susie looks over the pics too, but they're all wonky, distorted versions of her reality. Jack's shook, realizing that the killer might have been lurking nearby all along. One day, Jack strolls by Harvey's house and sees a dead rose bush. Harvey peeps Jack snooping around and hides, clutching a bunch of wooden sticks like he's about to build a DIY fortress. Jack's about to bounce, but then Harvey drops the sticks when he spots Susie's shadow on a bike. Jack turns around and approaches Harvey, asking what he's up to with all those sticks. They start chatting and Harvey says he's a nature enthusiast. Susie, stuck in limbo, finds a flower in a safe. Jack, back in the real world, also picks up a flower and pretends it's blooming between his fingers. Innocently, he helps Harvey with his project, not knowing it's a trap for Lindsay. As they work, Jack becomes more and more convinced that Harvey's the one who clapped Susie. Harvey catches on to Jack's suspicions and tells him to skedaddle, but as Jack heads home, he can't help it. He just has to give Harvey's door a good whack, leaving a hole as his calling card. That night, the detective tells Jack he's got to quit playing Sherlock Holmes. Lindsay calls the detective a scaredy cat and throws shade at him for not catching the killer yet. Jack finally decides it's time to move on and gives the detective a sarcastic thank you. Later that evening, after tucking the kids in, Jack grabs a baseball bat. No, not for a midnight game, and heads to Harvey's house. Just then, Harvey steps outside and disappears into a cornfield. Jack follows, yelling for Harvey to man up and face him. In limbo, Susie tries to tell her dad to let it go, but he's like a dog with a bone. Suddenly, Jack stumbles upon a couple that Harvey's been creeping on for days. The boyfriend, mistaking Jack for the stalker, goes all Hulk mode and beats him to a pulp while Harvey watches. Meanwhile, Susie decides it's time to let her dad go and ventures into the one place she can never leave, Harvey's house. There she uncovers Harvey's twisted past and realizes he's a serial clapper with a resume longer than a CVS receipt. Susie then stumbles upon a truly bizarre sight. Harvey's ghostly victims are having an afterlife party, and they're all invited. Harvey's murderous career began in 1960, when he clapped his landlady, leading to a twisted path of victims, including a 13-year-old boy, who now haunts canals, a young woman lounging in a ghostly creek, a 6-year-old girl, and Susie's new spectral pal, Holly. The grand finale, of course, is Susie, whose body is hidden in a sack inside a safe like some kind of twisted magic trick. During a neighborhood jog, Lindsay spots Harvey driving by and makes a bold move. She's going full Nancy Drew and sneaking into his house to search for evidence. Once inside, she uncovers a cabinet of newspaper clippings, Susie's abduction being the creepiest scrapbook edition. Lindsay then finds Harvey's notebook on the floor, complete with blueprints for his dastardly traps, and even a lock of Susie's hair. Now that's a hair-raising discovery. Just as Lindsay's about to high-five herself, Harvey comes home. He hears the sound of the notebook pages turning and goes full Sherlock mode. Lindsay, in true ninja fashion, swipes the booklet and bolts through the window, nearly escaping Harvey's clutches. Now in full panic mode, Harvey starts packing his bags and prepping to flee. Lindsay dashes home to find Jack and discovers her mom has made a surprise return. Jack, who's on the mend, spots his wife and they share a heartwarming hug. Lindsay shows them Harvey's creepy diary, and they call the Ghostbusters. The police. The authorities speed to Harvey's house, but he's already hit the road, with Susie's body still hidden in the safe. Harvey takes the safe to a dump, ready to toss it into a massive pit. Ruth and Ray, who are casually chilling nearby, witness the safe disposal, and Ruth gets that spidey sense that something's off. Meanwhile, in limbo, Susie and Harvey's other victims gather under a tree, laughing like they're at the Afterlife's best comedy club, because they're about to head to heaven. Susie, however, hits the pause button, making Holly wonder what's holding her back. Just then, Ruth catches a glimpse of Susie's reflection in the window and calls out to Ray. In a supernatural twist, Ruth temporarily morphs into Susie, leaving Ray wide-eyed and amazed. Susie tells him she read his letter and asked for a kiss. Meanwhile, Harvey chucks the safe into the pit, and as it sinks, Susie's soul gets ready to ascend to heaven. In the epilogue, Jack and his wife reunite, Lindsay becomes pregnant, and Ruth and Ray get cozy. Harvey relocates, planning to continue his grim hobby, but fate has other plans. One chilly evening, Harvey tries to lure a young woman into his car by offering her a ride, but Karma's got a wicked sense of humor, and as he steps too close to the edge of a cliff, an icicle breaks loose and nails his shoulder. Harvey slips off the edge, shattering every sinister bone in his body, and leaving him to meet his frosty demise in the snow. In the end, Susie realizes it's time to let go and move on to the great beyond. Moral of the story? Ghost.